my personal example would be, before I had children with disabilities, I always thought I was in control. I'm in control. I'm making a plan, and I'm going to stick to my plan. And what you learn is that things come at you. And when things come at you that you've never experienced before, it gives you perspective on what's important. It gives you perspective on prioritization. It gives you perspective on how to react and respond to things that happen in life. Sometimes people say, look, it's not brain surgery. Well, you know what? Sometimes it is.
Nadine, thank you so much for coming on the show. You are the CEO of Springboard Consulting. You have an MBA from Golden Gate University in San Francisco, a bachelor's in industrial psychology from the College of Charleston. You've had you've had a lot of accomplishments, an interesting career up to this point. Tell us how you became and got to be the CEO of Springboard Consulting.
So how I became, first of all, thank you. Thank you for having me join you today. How I became the CEO of Springboard Consulting is actually a funny story. I was in corporate America. I was a fairly senior executive reporting to the CEO of a Fortune 50 company. And I had started a division of that company that I think by year 3 had become the most successful, from a revenue standpoint, division in the corporation. And one day the CEO walked on the elevator with me and said that he always had a question to ask me. And basically it was that, why, when I came up with a business plan to create this division, why did I start my own company? And I was honest to say I hadn't thought of it. And he told me that was really stupid. And then the elevator doors opened and he left. That stuck with me. And so he retired 2 years later. I went to his retirement party on a Monday. I turned in my resignation after 19 years with that company on Tuesday, and I started Springboard on Wednesday. He went and became CEO of another corporation, and they became one of our first clients.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, so that actually is how it started. It wasn't even my idea.
That's awesome. So what do you do? Tell us about what Springboard does.
Springboard operates in about 85 countries around the world, working with large global corporations to mainstream individuals with disabilities as candidates, as employees, and as customers, and everything that goes with it. And it's all types of disability, whether it's visible, invisible, born with, acquired, military related, age related, etc.
And so how did you realize that was something that there was a need for?
So the division that I created in the corporation was all focused around disability and planning for families that have children with disabilities. I have 2 adult daughters. My oldest one was born significantly disabled, and my younger one also born with a number of issues. And so I quickly learned what the issues were that were impacting individuals with disabilities, but then also their families, etc. At that point, it was more about parents and children and so forth. But as I started digging into it, I quickly learned that there was no real transition when these children became adults and they aged out of the system and were going to employment or were going to colleges and universities or could. And so that's how it all started.
What does a typical day look like for you?
I'm not sure I would use the word typical, actually. Typical day is I get up very early in the morning. First thing I do is spend about an hour or so in a gym or walking on the beach, something to get my head going. And first thing then is email, just checking in, because we're global. People are working around the clock. So when I come up and look at the computer in the morning, I have, emails from the night before. So it's going through emails. It's typically checking in with my head of ops and my admin. Anything going on, I need to be aware of what's happening. And then it's just the day. And some days it is just back-to-back meetings with clients. Some days it is physically with clients and with some of our teams. Some days I'd like to allocate for just strategic planning and, going behind the scenes and seeing what's next. But I would say that what I love probably more than anything is that it's not typical. Every day is really different. And we're always focusing on different things, so even with the client work, one day is training, one day is assessments, one day, we're looking at legal issues. One day I'm looking at things in Europe versus US. So it really makes it for quite a varied schedule.
Yeah, that sounds great. That's awesome. That keeps you on your toes for sure.
It does.
What do you read? What reading recommendations would you have for us?
So I typically read a couple of books at a time. I get bored. So I'm usually reading something that has absolutely nothing to do with business, that's more casual, that is, but always with something to learn. So it could be something as simple as I'm reading a book about photography, or I'm reading about the Italian language. It could be something like that, but I'm also always reading business books. I think that there's something to continuous improvement and continuous learning. And so someone could say, Nadine, you're a global speaker, you do, 30, 40 keynotes a year. Why are you reading a book on delivering keynotes? Because there's still something, I am sure, that I could learn or do better. And so that's constant.
What do you give speeches on? Like that's a lot. That's a lot of speaking in a year. Wow, that's incredible.
It is. So the presentations sometimes are topic focused. It could be something that is very specific to new legislation in a particular country around disability, but very often it's motivational, inspirational, speaking to executives, to leaders, how to be better leaders, and what does that really look like, and having perspective, because I find that most people don't have perspective, and you need that to really succeed.
What do you mean by perspective?
My personal example would be, before I had children with disabilities, I always thought I was in control. I'm in control. I'm making a plan, and I'm going to stick to my plan. And what you learn is that things come at you. And when things come at you that you've never experienced before, it gives you perspective on what's important. It gives you perspective on prioritization. It gives you perspective on how to react and respond to things that happen in life. Sometimes people say, look, it's not brain surgery. Well, you know what? Sometimes it is. And so that's what I'm talking about with perspective. People often say, oh, I'm going to take time and find myself. How about creating yourself? How about taking some perspective and creating yourself? Really be intentional about what you want to do.
I like that. What to you makes a great leader?
I think a great leader, I don't think leaders are born, first of all. I really don't. And then depending, there's different definitions of leadership. If someone is going to be leading in the industry, leading product development, something like that, they need to do that which others can't do, won't do, and don't know how to do. That has to be the smell test. If not, they're just going to do what everybody else is doing, and they're not going to stand out as a leader. The other piece of leading is to remember that you may have the title of leader. It's my people that make Springboard successful, not me, right? I'm hiring the right people, but I'm relying on them because of their expertise, because of their perspective, their experiences. And I think you have to be humble. You have to take a step back and just be humble about things and say, I really said that wrong, or I really don't know that. I bet you know that better than I do. And I will always put my people first. We'll be in big presentations and meetings with C-suite, with corporate boards, and I have no problem having my ops person sitting there and saying, I know you want to talk to me, but she's the one who really knows this, right? And put her in front of the leaders. I think you have to acknowledge and recognize your people.
Yeah, how are you thinking about AI? Are you implementing that at all?
So AI is very interesting, and the reason I'm laughing is Springboard produces an event called Disability Matters. It's an annual corporate conference and awards, and we're going to have a dedicated main stage session this year on AI. And that decision was literally made like a week ago, so that's why I'm laughing when you ask about it. Technology in and of itself is a great equalizer for people with disabilities. However, it depends how the technology is used and how it's developed. You hear about digital accessibility. I like to talk about digital usability. There are many accessible websites out there that are not usable by people with disabilities because nobody's taken the practical approach. When you add AI into it, everybody's very excited about AI. It's very sexy and it tends to be discriminatory in nature relative to individuals with disabilities. Because remember, AI is only as good as the people programming it. If the folks that are programming it or the sites that they're putting in for the system to identify information is not accurate or is not appropriate, then the AI is not going to be appropriate. And we're finding this specifically in the area of talent acquisition, where companies are using AI in terms of interviewing and hiring and engaging, qualified talent, that it's not working so well. So we'll be addressing that in April.
Okay, that's something to look forward to there. You have the Women Influence and Power group inside of Springboard that focuses specifically on the development and impact of women's leadership and advancement globally. How are we doing as a society as it relates to women in business?
I don't think we're doing so well. I don't think we're doing so well. I think that personally, I think we've taken many steps backward, actually. I think we were kind of moving in the right direction, and it just seems like we've taken some steps back. And you probably can see this in some industries more than others. We've noticed recently in the music entertainment industry, there were quite a few women CEOs or very senior leaders, and they're not there anymore. And there are other industries like that. The WIPP group really came about. It's interesting because Harvard, with the Harvard Kennedy School, had approached us about publishing a case on Springboard and what we've done and how we've done it, et cetera. And in doing that, we ended up speaking with and working with very senior level women from government, from corporate around the world. And we started having these conversations about what this means. And then that was so successful that the Harvard Business School published a second case. And the reason I'm bringing all of this up is because menopause is something that companies don't want to talk about. But if we think about when menopause occurs, it occurs primarily in women at that more senior level leadership. And nobody wants to talk about it and nobody wants to recognize it. And this is something that we talk about a lot through the WIPP group and even through Springboard. And the reason is in some countries, like in the UK, for instance, menopause is a protected class, similar to disability legislation, right? We don't
Really?
have that here. I think we should, or we will at some point. Every company puts out things for pregnancy. Not every woman will become pregnant, but every woman will go through menopause. When we think about that, and we think about women in leadership, and I speak to very senior level women who will say, "Oh, I can't talk about that. I'm in a boardroom with all men. I'll just, if I have to, I'll take a day off." Right? That's terrible. That's terrible, and that's impacting and influencing inappropriately.
What should companies do about it? And what are you recommending they do about it?
A couple of things. We have to recognize that menopause is a natural state, not a disease. Even if it was, doesn't matter. It's a natural state, number one. Number two, when companies benefits divisions, are looking and assessing benefits programs, they need to take that into consideration no differently than they do for pregnancy and other aspects of women's health, right? It's a continuum of women's health. The other thing that they have to do is be willing to have open, honest conversations and allow people to talk about it in the workplace without feeling bad or wanting to hide it. I can tell you, we have these facilitated dialogues that we do with women. The men aren't even in the room. We haven't gotten started yet. The women are talking about their weekends, other things for business. All of a sudden, someone says menopause and they start to whisper. Like, we're behind closed doors. Why are we whispering? So it's a societal issue that companies are not going to be able to fix for society, but if companies start approaching this in the way we're talking about it, it will have an impact on society.
I see what you're saying there. What do you wish you had known earlier in your career? Basically, what do you know now that you wish you would have known earlier?
Patience is a virtue.
Everything takes 3 times as long as you think.
Yeah, patience is absolutely a virtue. That I would say that would probably be number one. Number two would be, and this is where perspective comes in, to be less judgmental. I think that when you're young, you really believe, judge a book by its cover kind of thing and make assumptions. Whether it's about people, it's about companies, programs, you have to look what's behind the scenes. And I wish I did more of that when I was younger. That helps you in so many ways. It helps personal growth. It helps business growth. Yeah, that would be it.
Tell us about the book you wrote.
Wow, that was a long time ago. The book was called Dive In, and it was about looking at people with disabilities in the workforce. And what we did was we interviewed about 20 fairly senior executives from different companies and asking them what their approaches were and what challenges they had and how they were addressing the risk and the risk mitigation issues. And the reason we did that was, at Springboard, we can talk to companies all the time, but companies like to hear from their peers. Mm-hmm. And companies are competitive with one another. And companies learn just as much, if not more, from what a company maybe didn't do so well than what they did and did successfully. Yeah, for sure. And so that was our rule with the book, was that they had to be willing to share not just the good and the bad, but the ugly. if there was ugly. And I think that the greatest pleasure I get with that book is years later, I'll go into someone's office and not only do I see it on their shelf, but they're so proud to show it to me with all these pages folded and, certain things highlighted and redlined. And I just love it. They use it almost like the old encyclopedias, like a resource. And I get tickled every time I see that.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, you do all sorts of like really fascinating things. Like you have 3 TV programs. You have Inclusion at Work at Bloomberg TV. You have the Nosh, and you have Talking Tea with G and Me on RVN TV. How do you do all of this? I'm exhausted just reading what you do every day.
So I believe that we will sleep when we die. So I don't get a lot of sleep. I get enough sleep, but not a lot. I kind of tend to work very long days. And I'll go for 3-4 days, and then I hit a wall, and then I need like one night of just 12 hours of sleep, and then I'm back. But if I don't get that 12 hours of sleep when I need it, God help anybody who wants to engage with me. So that's kind of how I do it. And it's fun and it's fascinating because there's so many aspects to this work. A few years ago, actually it's probably more than a few years ago now, but I was given an opportunity. European University in Rome had come to us and said that they wanted to develop curriculum on disability management and asked us if we would help them develop that curriculum, which we did. And I have a sweatshirt that says Professore Vogel. I get all excited with it, right? And what's really wonderful about it is that we've gotten to see the students who've gone through it and how their perspective and actions have changed as a result of going through that curriculum. And now, just a few months ago, we got asked to come back and create more of a graduate level curriculum. And so we're in the process of doing that right now, which will get launched first quarter.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah, I love Italy.
Yeah. Any chance you have to be in Italy seems like a good idea.
Exactly. And someone's going to pay me to be there? Oh my gosh.
Just take that opportunity immediately.
Exactly.
What do you think about how politicized DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, has become in the world? I mean, it was something that, having been in tech and business for over a decade, it's something that was always talked about. But now it has become like this mainstream kind of divisive political point. And I wonder, as someone who works on these types of issues and these types of talks, like you were just talking about around like menopause, how do you feel about that?
It goes back to what I said earlier, that I feel like we've gone backwards when it comes to, women in leadership. And I just think I feel like I went to bed one night and it was, 2024 and I woke up and it was 1950. Like, whoa, what happened? I think so many things get politicized today. I think that's part of the problem. I think DEI is just one piece. And people fear what they don't know or they don't understand. People take advantage of what they believe others don't know, and whether it's DEI or another topic. And so it saddens me greatly because I can think of so many amazing individuals over the years that have put their heart and soul and sweat into creating these programs to advance women, to advance people of color, to advance people with disabilities. In a nanosecond, it seems like it's been taken away. On the disability front specifically, what is interesting is that while DEI generally has been attacked in many ways, disability legislation and policies have gotten stronger. So, that's the good news, bad news kind of thing. But what I don't understand is, even whether it's disability or anything, I feel like we've been down this road before. Whether it's the women's movement, whether it's people from the Black and brown community, we've looked at social justice. We've gotten past it. Why are we going back and repeating what we know didn't work the first time? But I'm not in charge, so I'm only in charge of my world. So can't control everything. Like I said, I learned early on that I had to give up some control.
I love it. Nadine, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you. We end every interview with the same question.
Okay.
And that is, we believe the chances one gives are just as important as the chances one takes. When you hear that, who gave you a chance to get you to where you are today?
Wow. I think that there are a lot of chances that a lot of people get, but they don't read the tea leaves. They don't always recognize what a chance is. So as an example, the CEO of the company that I was working for, when I first told people what he said, people didn't see that as he was throwing something out there, throwing a bone, throwing a chance. It was more, oh my gosh, I can't believe he said that. That's terrible. I didn't take it that way. I took it very differently. The fact that he went to another company and they became, one of our first clients, the fact that then he was willing to be on our advisory board, right? All of those, he was giving me gifts all along the way. But I find that often gifts are given, but they're not acknowledged. They're not recognized as gifts. And so for me, I feel like I've been given gifts as early as, in high school. I was not the best student in high school. I like to play more than I like to study. And, I had a teacher that really pushed hard on me and said, well, maybe you shouldn't go to college and maybe this and maybe that, and made me mad. And she knew me well enough to know that if she made me mad enough, I was going to push back and then get where I had to go. And right. Others said, I can't believe she's always picking on you. Right? So I think I've been given many. In life, my husband and I, we met and started dating. We were 14 years old. We've been married, for almost 40 years. And
Wow,
that's the
congratulations.
gift.
That is incredible.
I think that my children, especially my older daughter, born with significant disabilities, I certainly wish she didn't have those disabilities and didn't have to deal with the things that she does. There's a piece of it. It was, there's a reason that things happen. And the gift was that now we get to educate and help not only her, but so many people around the world like her who have those issues in employment, in success. So I think there's a lot of gifts along the way.
That's incredible. Nadine, what an honor to have you on here.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you for taking the time and everything that you do in the world. I'm sure we'll have you back on to talk about various things that you're doing. Good luck with all your travels too. You're everywhere. You do a million things. It's unbelievable.
I sleep well on planes.
There's the trick right there.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.